Today I think I'm going to call this my Urgent Sunday message. And I think what we're going to do is talk about some of the things that people are missing when it comes to hearing our normal news site. Like for instance, we have the White House, we supposedly have the Supreme Court, we have the Congress, both House chambers, and why nothing is getting passed and why the appointments of Trump are getting held up. Does that make sense to you? So when you think about that, why are we not passing things and getting things back right? I mean, do I hate daylight savings time? Yes, I hate the hour changing, but does this really involve Congress getting on news every day talking about that's what they're worried about? There's a lot more things in the world to worry about. Have you heard the fact that thousands upon thousands of Christians are getting persecuted and prosecuted and killed and murdered? Remember, this was the regime that we helped topple. Does that make you feel bad? I mean, does that make you think that might have not been the right thing to do? Did you hear that tariffs are going on? China actually put new tariffs on Canada. Why does everybody hate America for it when China's doing the same thing? On agriculture. So here's the stories that we're missing. These are just a few. We're going to go over several today. And what I think we need to quit missing is I think we get so bogged down, even as conservatives or even as people who just want to follow different news and not legacy news, we say, well, these are good things, like the daylight savings time. These are good things, like Patel getting the people, the 3 arrested for treason. Yeah, but we're missing out on the things that are not getting done because we're scared to push it. Do you see that we're backing a continuing resolution that's going to kick the can down the road? I mean, that was the whole purpose of us getting in power and using Doge. But instead, the Republicans are now saying that they want to do a continuing resolution that spends a ton of money. And Trump endorses it. Does that make sense, especially when we are trying to not kick the can down the road? Did you know the Biden administration, before they left power, they were falsely paying for tons of mortgages so the housing market would not fall out? We'll discuss that. We're going to discuss all these stories today. And the reason I want to call it an Urgent Sunday message is for some reason we're missing every one of these stories and the dangers of it. And it all implements the fact that us as Americans have done something so wrong and we've got to correct the ship. We have countries like Congo and Ukraine who are now mad at us because we're not giving money to protect them. All the while, it's not our job to protect the world. We can't even get our own stuff together. Let's talk about these stories today. This video starts right now. Hey guys, welcome to the Max. Thank you so very much for being here today. I feel like this is more of a rant video. I don't want it to be, but I think that what we're doing is we're missing a lot. We're missing an opportunity to actually change the narrative. And I think we wanted to come in with, a chainsaw or sledgehammer and really make a change. But I feel like now we're not doing that anymore. We thought about it and we're like, it's going to hurt too many people. Don't worry about it. Let's go over a few things that I think we need to pay attention to. First, we have both houses of Congress. We have the presidency, and we can't get the people appointed in Trump's cabinet. There's still people that are missing out of Trump's cabinet because they have not taken the votes up. Does that mean that our conservatives are standing together? Another thing, Mike Johnson's going to pass this continuing resolution. Thomas Massie, of course, is against it, but every other Republican is going to sign upon it. What it does is actually kick the can down the road. The one thing that we said we did not want is going to kick the can down the road till literally like late fall to avert a government shutdown to see how we can implement better budget ideas. So another spending bill kicked down the road, and they keep giving the excuse. It's kind of like, if you ever met a habitual liar and they just lie all the time. They lie, and then all of a sudden they're like, we're going to be truthful. But we're going to be truthful next week. We're still alive for another week. Does that make sense to you? It's kind of stupid, isn't it? But we take it hook, line, and sinker. That's okay. That doesn't make sense. We have all bases of government, basically, as under the conservative or populist wing, the Republican wing of parties. We still have not seen Epstein files. We've still not seen JFK files. No 9/11 files. Seth Rich information has been taken away. No perp walks. No accountability. No justice. We've seen, 2 people fired? No persecutions brought against them. So we're actually getting things done. The Kennedy Center that Trump kind of took over. You know who's on the board? Well, Pam Bondi got put on the board. A few Fox News news anchors got put on the board. And you're like, okay, well, that's good. I mean, there's some conservatives. But then Mitch McConnell's wife is on the board too. So even though we think this drain the swamp thing is going to happen, I think the swamp is so big that I don't know if there's any possible way of draining it. And I hate to be the Debbie Downer. I really do. I don't want to be that person. But I look and I'm like, what are we doing? Why are we worried about Andrew Tate and interviewing him on conservative podcast? Why are we worried about daylight savings time? I mean, if we really only have 2 years, basically, meaning you only have the houses and the presidency for 2 years before the next election, and most of the time, history shows us that the other party will end up winning the second set of the 4 years. That's what a lot of the consensus is over our history. Sucks, but I'm just being honest. So if we only have 2 years, why in the world can we not even get the cabinet passed in there? Why are we still spending money that we don't have? Why are we still not actually doing anything when it comes to actually passing laws that we talked about passing? It shows that our leadership is not actually leading us. And that's a big deal. Now let's talk about Syria for a second. There's a new report that 1,000 Christians have been murdered. Now this hits home to me because, of course, I am a Christian. But the thing is this. If we are the ones that supposedly, the ones that threw over Assad, remember, we're the ones that helped throw over Assad's regime. Which, if you go back and look at the interviews, Christians during the Syrian situation, even though Assad was not a good leader, he was a bad person, Christians actually were at peace in Syria. They didn't feel the way of the world. But guess what? Then we allow and we help terrorists take over Syria to now they are literally prosecuting and persecuting and murdering Christians. Over 1,000 have been murdered. Now you're not going to hear that on mainstream media, but we're the ones that help overthrow a government to then cause for mass casualty events in Syria. It shows sometimes our involvement is not the best. Think of 2014 with Ukraine. I mean, that kind of kicked off this whole thing that's going on now dealing with Russia and Ukraine. It's amazing to me. And for instance, the stories about the tariffs, we're the ones that look bad. But like I said in yesterday's video, it's not that we're over-tariffing other countries. Actually, the other countries are over-tariffing us, and we're just wanting to balance it. 10% of our vehicles are tariffed that go into Europe. Only 2.5% that we tariff their vehicles coming over here. So that's why you see a lot more European cars. Now, does that make sense to you? No, but the story and the narrative is wrong because we don't know how to actually market that and say, look, we're not wanting to over-tariff. We're just wanting it to be not a trade deficit. Another thing, China came out and stated that they will put 100% tariff on Canada and some of the goods of agriculture. Now we're talking America saying 10, 25%. And the Canadians are throwing Americana coffees away and throwing away liquor from America and trying to burn all this stuff that says America on it. However, they're getting 100% tariff from China. But again, we only talk about the America situation and how the tariffs are just going to hurt Canada. And all the while, China just came out and said they're going to do 100% tariff on Canada. Isn't it amazing how we can't control the message anymore? It's amazing how us as conservatives have been we're so happy to see people come on our team that we're willing to kind of get away from our own principles. I think of all the quote-unquote conservative podcasters and commentators. Really, are they conservative? Or are they just liberals that we just allowed come on our team? Their belief systems and change of values. The Conservative Party was never about taking away from our morals and values. The Conservative Party was never about blowing money like we don't have. And that's exactly what, quote-unquote, the conservatives are doing in Washington. I just think we've got all this wrong. And it doesn't seem like we're making it any better. Let's talk about 2 more stories. And this is why you're going to start seeing the fall of America. And I hate to say it. I'm sorry. You can get mad, and I hope I'm wrong. I really do. There's a new story that came out that said that Biden's administration, I want to go back and read the exact amount, and this was a Wall Street Journal article. It says government was hiding foreclosures. Over 1 million loans were going into default. What happened was the Biden administration has been making mortgage payments for 1 million homeowners to manipulate the default. This artificially manipulated the market to make the economy look better, driving the housing prices up, which will cause for a massive bubble and also a massive crash in the housing market. It says The U.S. government currently stopped 1 million by overloading money in grants for people who could not pay. This goes along with another story from Zero Hedge. It says Bidenomics hangover worsens. January numbers, remember, Trump did not come in until January 20th. January numbers of the consumer index based on cars. It says subprime auto loan delinquencies hit record high for America. So subprime lending, meaning not quite the best borrowers were able to buy cars they couldn't afford, buy homes they couldn't afford. And this is us reliving the same thing that happened in 08. The same thing happened in the Great Depression, where we didn't have the money. We allow people to get money that they didn't actually were able to actually pay back. The credit card delinquency is more than it's ever been in January. So we're hitting all-time highs for the fact of what Biden, of course, was holdover. And now we're not giving money to the same things that Biden was given to. Remember, we're cutting a lot of that. So therefore, we are going to put ourselves in a recession or a depression just because we're choosing not to keep funding the stuff that Biden was funding. However, we're not willing to cut the budget because our Congress is still wanting to do a stopgap bill that will basically give $300 to $400 more billion that we don't have to debt. Now, I told you this was more of a rant than a video. But this is the kind of stuff that I think that is going to literally cause America to struggle, or cause your family, especially in middle America, to struggle. We want America to be better, but I don't truthfully know if it can without a major reset or a major reckoning or awakening. These congressmen do not represent you. This DC swamp does not represent you. If they did, they would not even pass this bill with $400 extra billion dollars worth of spending. I mean, do you realize that? $400 billion worth of extra spending. Elon Musk has cut a tremendous amount through Doge. He has not cut half of that, though. So that means we're cutting $200 billion, and now we're overly spending $400 billion. And like this week, Mike Johnson, Lindsey Graham, both came out, Senate and Congress, powerful ranking members, of course, came out and said they applaud the fact that Rand Paul's bill of the rescission, the $500 billion that Elon's wanting to cut, they applaud it. They applaud the fact that we're cutting $500 billion, or wanting to cut $500 billion, which I believe it will not pass. I've told you that. But at the same time, as we're cutting the quote-unquote $500 billion that they're wanting to cut, they're spending another $400 billion. What it was they already got all their handouts out of the first chunk of money that they cut. Remember, the $500 billion they're wanting to cut is $500 billion they approved to be spent. So this goes back to the daylight savings time thing. We have Rick Scott, we have Mike Lee, we have all these quote-unquote conservatives getting up there and saying, this is what we need to work towards. America is in such deep and utter problem that we're risking nuclear war. We have outbreaks on our shore. We have bad storms all over. We have problems with our federal funding, and our finances falling to pieces. And our conservative senators are worried about daylight savings time. No offense. This morning, I got up and my clock said 3:30, but actually it's 4:30. So I went out and milked. And I was like, man, it's early. I feel tired. I forgot it was daylight savings time, but my phone automatically changed. So my alarm automatically changed. And I was thinking, that's bad. But I didn't say, well, man, I would really like this daylight savings time to be handled, because truthfully, the nuclear war doesn't matter to me. Daylight savings time. That's the most important thing. Do you see how they spin it? They make you all go headlong for daylight savings time instead of the fact that we're not needing to spend this $400 billion that they're going to pass next week. They try to get your mind off of it. It's amazing to me where we're at as a country. In Ireland now, Enoch Burke, a Christian school teacher in Ireland, will be stripped of his salary because refusing to go along with woke ideology there. Burke has already spent 500 days in prison because of his Christian views. So while we're trying to worry about daylight savings time, there actually is persecution going on to Christians. Now, we're supposed to be standing up for things and giving money to the world. I mean, my gosh, why don't we just learn to be a beacon of hope and show other countries, look, we're going to punish you. We're not giving money. We're going to punish you and take money away and stipend and tariff you and make sure you understand why you need to do better. I mean, we did that this week with South Africa, where they were hurting the white farmers, and we should have. I'm glad of that. But these other problems, like the Syria thing, Like the fact that the woke push, that was all us doing that. It was our administrations doing that. I mean, I wouldn't say it's Trump administration, it's Biden administration for both, getting rid of Assad. And also the fact that they pushed all this woke garbage all over the world with the USAID. And so now the target is Christians across the world. And that was our fault. But aren't we supposed to be the beacon of hope and the beacon of Christianity? And that's what breaks my heart. Is because we're losing our way. There are some stories that look like we're winning, and I hope we are. I hope it gets better. But when you start actually digging into a lot of stories, you realize nothing's going to change. The Epstein files that we were promised on day one, where are they at? They said they're going to be so redacted that even when we get them, you won't get nothing else out of it that you probably already didn't know. The balanced budgets, the cut of $2 trillion, the things that we were promised, where are they at? We've cut $150 billion, which is great, but then we just spent another $400 billion through this new continuing resolution. It's all smoke and mirrors, guys. And this is the whole point of what I'm doing this video for is this. Here I am with this broken record again. I want our government to stand with us. I want them to help us out. But truthfully, it's just not going to happen. It really comes down to you. You want to know how to fix America and help America and Main Street America? Lower our taxes. Real change to our health care. Real change to the fact of our insurance and it costing so much. We want to see cuts in budgets to where we're not putting ourselves in more precarious situations. Main Street America is in more debt financially when it comes to their delinquency in cars, delinquency in homes, and delinquency in credit cards. If we really want to help Main Street economics and America, the heart of America, it's not going to be talking about daylight savings time. It's not going to be talking to the Tate brothers on podcast, conservative podcasters. It's not going to be like Pam Bondi. I mean, like there was a big story where she was hanging our RFK Sr. picture up in her office. I mean, this is what I'm talking about. The optics look great, but truthfully, the same old, same old. I had high hopes for this administration, and don't get me wrong, I know it just started, but you don't have 4 years. You really have about a year and a half, because you're going to see all these congressmen not want to get kicked out, so when they go back for election, they're not going to vote on anything next year. If you don't make it happen in the next 6 months, it won't happen. And truthfully, all we're doing is still going down the same downhill slope, building the same snowball, and to watch us crumble and crash at the bottom. Guys, let me know your thoughts. Again, sorry to make a rant video, especially on a Sunday, because I want you to be in church. I want you to be with your family. One thing I've realized more and more is the only hope that I can have, of course, spiritually, is in God. And so I look to, my relationship with Christ for that. When I hear that 1,000 Christians were slaughtered in Syria, and really it was America's fault for throwing out this other leader. I want to hear that this teacher, because of woke ideology, that America was pushing this last administration, is now going to lose his job, and he spent 500 days in prison. He didn't go to court for that. Just because he chose to wear his Christian faith, it makes me thankful for my Christian faith. But don't doubt that same persecution can't come here, because we have lost our way as conservatives. I hold fast to my Christian faith. I hold fast to my family, and hold fast to the fact that I have to be independent, sustainable, and trying to raise my own food, because what I've realized, even with the best and the best and the best in leadership, the courts still hold up things that shouldn't be held up. The Congress still are not putting people in power and cutting our budget like they're supposed to. And this administration, who I like, is still not actually doing what they said, like Bondi and like Patel. I think of RFK. He's trying a lot of things in HHS. But so far, not much has happened. And don't give me, well, they've only been in office just for a little bit. Go back in history and look. Whatever does not get done really in the first 100 days or the first 6 months to a year of a presidency will not get done, because the Congress will not pass nothing the next year that they're going to get voted on by their constituents. So it's not that he has 4 years. It's not that he even has 2 years. He really has about a year. And while Elon Musk and them are trying to cut the budget, which is doing great on some things, the Congress is working against them. It's kind of like me digging a hole, and I'm digging it on a hill. I can literally throw the dirt out and dig this hole. But if I have someone right behind me filling the hole back in with the same dirt in the same hole, as I'm digging out, the hole is not actually getting dug out. It looks like it is, but all the while it's actually getting put right back in from behind. That's exactly what I think we're doing here, smoke and mirrors. It looks good, the optics look good, we're going to get stuff done. At the same time, we still have Mitch McConnell, his wife, serving on things like the Kennedy Center. That was appointed by Trump. Trump put all those people in there. So how deep is the swamp? Sadly, I think it's too deep to actually do something about. I hope I'm wrong. Prove me wrong. I hope that all these conservatives actually worry about something other than daylight savings time and worry about something other than, random stuff that they're worried about, putting pictures on the wall. Instead of doing all that, like I love the fact that Kash Patel went to UFC. That's great. I hope he had a great time. But really, do I care if Kash Patel, the FBI director, goes to UFC and spends time with Dana White? Nope. I want him to release the files that he promised. I want him to actually arrest people that should be arrested for doing bad things. Optics is one thing. Actually doing something is the other. Let's go back. No files released. No arrests made. This is where we better start accomplishing something or we're going to see the fall of America. That's my rant, my urgent message for this day. Again, not to scare you, not to make you get all drabbed, because I hope you've had a good day at church. But I'm scared that we're putting too much faith and too much assurance in people who are going to let us down. And sadly, when we put our faith and assurance in people, what happens is they're going to let us down. But ultimately, we tend to take our eyes off the important things, like prepping, the important things of putting things up, the importance of making sure that our budget's on task. Because we trust that these people are going to be better. They said people are not buying bullets as much anymore, defense items as much anymore. It says that people are not buying prepping goods as much anymore because they feel like they're doing better. Never stop. Don't ever put your guard down. Always stay focused, because people will let you down. That's my message for the day. Sorry to be so drabbed, but let me know your thoughts on today's video. Are you happy with what we've gotten, quote unquote, accomplished so far? Or the optics look better than actually what's happening? Let me know. God bless.
Yeah, be free, be free, be free.